Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. And today we're talking about how you can use crowdfunding not only to start a business, but also to expand a business. I'm talking about expanding with rapid fire, right? So when it comes to this, you can use crowdfunding to accelerate the pace of growth when it comes to a new business or one that you already have and you're trying to grow into multiple locations, multiple territories, whatever it is, multiple verticals. And you're going to hear directly how today's entrepreneur, today's individual was able to do that. And they are actually expanding across locations using crowdfunding, and they're doing round after round. So they did a £600,000 round when it comes to Crowdcube, another one. They did another round on Seed Invest. So this is over $1 million, insane, right? When it comes to equity crowdfunding. So I've been talking a lot on my YouTube channel. You can search my name, Salvador Briggman. I've talked a lot on my YouTube channel about WeFunder, equity crowdfunding, Reg CF, these kinds of different terms. If you want to learn more about this, I'm going to share a link for you in just a little bit. But on today's episode, I really want you to pay attention to the fact that this is something that literally anyone can do. And today's guest exactly says that. They're like, this is not a secret science. They are the ones who said this. And I've been saying this for years, right? It's not a secret science. There is a method to the madness. There's a method behind this. So you can really follow step by step in order to smash your goal when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign, in order to raise a ton of money for your project, for your business, for your venture, whatever it is. Either it's to get it off the ground or to, again, expand it into new territories, new locations, and growth and verticals. So this is something that is 100% doable. You're going to hear about some of those tactics and techniques that the creator used on today's podcast, the entrepreneur used. And in addition, if you are at all curious about this, I want to be sharing with you a link at the end of the episode where if you want to explore if this works for your business or not, we can do a one-on-one coaching call that will go in depth to that. So I'll share a link about that at the end of the podcast. But the other thing I want to mention is I got an incredible guide, man. If you've ever been interested in equity crowdfunding, I kind of put together a playbook, which is kind of like a blueprint when it comes to running a campaign. What do you need to know when it comes to the marketing? What do you need to know when it comes to setting up one of these suckers? I've been doing a lot of calls recently, and honestly, one of the biggest questions is like, Sal, these companies, these platforms do not make it easy. I don't understand why things are put in such big financial jargon, expensive words, hard to understand, all these different things. Like, I just don't understand it. So that's one of the things I obviously try to provide when it comes to my coaching calls and clarity there. But I also have that book, Equity Crowdfunding Explained. So if you want to learn more, I'm going to give you two links. One is a free course that will walk you step by step through running an equity crowdfunding campaign. All you got to do is go to this link I'm about to mention, and you can go there and you can sign up and you can learn more about this. So go to the link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/equity course. That is crowdcrux.com/equity course, crowdcrux.com/equity course. You can go there, you can sign up, you can start getting some videos from me on equity crowdfunding. Number two, if you want to learn more about this in depth, you can check out my audiobook, Equity Crowdfunding Explained. You can go to the link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/equity audio, crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link will take you there. You can go there. You can learn a little bit more about how this all works. And finally, one of the most important things is to really just pay attention to some of these keys to success. We have an incredible, multi-successful entrepreneur on the show. I really hope that you take a lot away from today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And obviously on this show, love to bring on success stories, love to bring on case studies. And I hope that by hearing this, not only are you getting access to great techniques, education, tips, resources, tools, all that kind of stuff. But I also hope that this week, this just even revitalizes you. This gets you energized. This gets you pumped up. This gets you inspired, my friend, to go out there and to work hard on your dreams and on your project. And this episode is coming up right after this. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. We have a mega campaign coming in from the UK, over £600,000 that have been raised, over 700 investors. And today we are privileged enough to speak with a member of the team. We have Louise Palmer here from the show, from STEM and Glory. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Definitely. So maybe we can get started. You could just tell listeners a bit about your company and introduce them to what you're doing here with this Crowdcube campaign.
Yeah, we're a 100% vegan business. We started in 2017. We're also an exclusively crowdfunded business. We've actually done successive crowdfunding rounds. And now we've just closed another round and we have over 1,600 individuals invested in our brand.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it's kind of like our comfort zone, not comfort zone crowdfunding. But anyway, it's something that we're very familiar with, having done it multiple times now. First one was in March 2018, and we've literally just closed another one, March 2022.
And for your first one, how much did you end up raising with that campaign in 2018?
They were quite similar, both campaigns, actually. We did 610,000 and we did this time close to 600,000.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And in terms of your brand and your company, what kind of makes you different here? I know we talk a lot about, vegan and different types of food that's available there, plant-based. What kind of makes you guys different here?
Well, I mean, the whole thing kind of came about really because of my own personal passion, I suppose, trying to find a decent vegan meal in a restaurant for a very long time, like literally more than 30 years. So I like to think that's where we kind of fit into the whole vegan movement. There's a lot of vegan junk food around, which is great. And obviously it definitely plays a massive part in getting people to eat more vegan food. But we're much more kind of contemporary. We're trying to make food which is both delicious and healthy, because definitely in my younger days, those two things were mutually exclusive. It was either healthy or it was delicious. So yeah, we're sort of kind of right on that line really of healthy and delicious.
And how is this being received in England or in UK? I know you guys I think you're based in Cambridge, right, with your restaurants?
Yeah, I'm based just outside Cambridge and we started in Cambridge. And I think the benefit of being from a small town like that, we had really huge support from the local community. So when I came to our first crowdfunding round, for example, it was just amazing the support that we received from our home crowd. And I think that works very well with crowdfunding. It's called crowdfunding for good reason. You don't get the crowd from going on Crowdcube or wherever. You have the crowd. It's a pre-existing crowd, and that kind of gives you the necessary momentum to get other people on board. So I think having from a smaller town kind of was definitely an advantage with that. But we've seen our brand grow enormously. We've kind of kept up that momentum even through the kind of rather uncertain times of the last 2 years.
And for you, do you view yourself as a restaurateur? Do you view yourself as a businesswoman, a creative person? How do you view yourself?
That's a good question. I've not been asked that before. I suppose probably I would see myself as a business person / creative. I mean, I think business is a hugely creative pursuit, and I think a lot of people give it that credit, really. They see it as a kind of dry sort of business pursuit, but there's a huge amount of creativity, especially if you're involved in the startup ecosystem. I wasn't a restaurateur. I have no background in hospitality, but I do have a background in business, and I run a previous multi-site business. So obviously there's a huge amount of transferable skills there. And I mean, I'm a massive foodie. I'm a very long-term vegan, and I've been cooking vegan foods for such a long time. So although I'm not a chef, I don't cook in our kitchens, I'm obviously very, very involved in the menus and the presentation of the brand.
And for you as a business person, there are so many different ways to get capital, right? And to fund a business. What really attracted you to doing a campaign on Crowdcube? How did you even hear about that when it was first coming out?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that there are many ways to get funded, but certainly as a startup entrepreneur, you can spend a lot of time trying to get investment. And I mean, you may or may not be aware that very few pounds go in towards female founders and entrepreneurs. Not that that was particularly a motivating force in the beginning, but I guess it's something that I have maybe experienced, not directly, but now I'm looking back, I'm thinking, I did experience that for sure. There's a very stereotypical type of entrepreneur that gets sort of investment, and it's generally male and youngish as well. So it wasn't kind of an intentional thing, but I always felt very comfortable with the idea of crowdfunding because I knew we had a really good crowd. We had massive support, from when we first opened in Cambridge, people were just piling through the door. And so I guess you hedge your bets on the community, and it turned out to be a really good move. And I've sort of rinse and repeat really, because it works very well for us. And it also works very well for vegan brands generally, I think, crowdfunding. You've got people wanting to invest in something that's going to make them money, but then you've got people investing because they're very passionate about the vegan movement.
What I love about that is that it really does take a ferocious tenacity to actually do a restaurant and to do the restaurant business well. It takes a lot of guts. It's a lot of hard work. And with this, you get to kind of participate in all that upside by being an investor without having to go and cook the meals, without having to coordinate everything, play a part in that and experience a lot of the upside and a lot of the achievements there without having to put in the hard work as well, which is really nice.
Well, yeah, depending on your view. I try not to think of life in terms of hard work, really, because I think if you focus too much on that, you'll probably never get anything done. But yeah, when hospitality works, hey, what can I say? It's absolutely fantastic. It's so brilliant. It's like every night is sort of the best night of your life when it's going very well. So there's an immense kind of instant reward from being involved in the hospitality business, both from an owner perspective, but also from a staff perspective, I think.
So when it comes to this first campaign that you were doing, how did you really introduce this to people? Like, were you telling them literally as they're entering the restaurant, hey, we're doing this whole cool Crowdcube campaign? Were you emailing people? How were you really getting those initial investors to kind of start the snowball with that first campaign?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. It's about the snowball. So basically, you start building up. There's an amazing thing to do with timing with Crowdcube. And if you surf the wave correctly, it's just awesome. And now there are various points where you might not surf the wave correctly and you can sort of pull it back later on. That's fine. Timing is everything. You don't want to do it too soon because obviously people get tired of it. But the essential starting point has got to be a massive database. So we already had quite a large database, to be honest, but also we run all our campaigns almost exclusively on Facebook and Instagram ads. So we were collecting basically data through Facebook and Instagram ads. So you're signposting people to the fact that you're going to be crowdfunding, and you give people the opportunity to be the first to invest. So they get access to your pitch before it goes live. And that's a fairly well-trodden path now for people raising money on crowdfunding platforms. And it's about building that excitement in the right way. And then when you've got this big database of people who've expressed an interest, then you hit them with the link to the campaign before it goes live. So they all put their money in before you go live, so that when you actually go live, you're rolling already. And that's how it works, basically, in a nutshell.
For you, was your big kind of push the fact that people could really help with the vegan movement? Was it the fact that people could get a tremendous upside in ROI with a growing business? What was kind of your angle there when you were spreading those messages?
Yeah, I think you can invest anything from £10 to 100,000 in our business. So I always like to think that people are just putting in what they can afford. And I kind of value every single £10 investor as much as the larger investors as well. And I think even people who are investing in you because you're a vegan brand, they're still looking for a potential upside. Of course they are. Yeah. But, a lot of people will just put in £10 just because they want to be a part of it. They like the story, they like the brand. And, they have a claim on being part of your story then. And I think
100%. I think the other thing is that people kind of hear your passion and enthusiasm and imagine that also kind of percolates throughout the community. Right? Because you really do have to be passionate to do a restaurant business, particularly in something that's a little bit more offbeat, and to take that risk. So I'm sure that your passion also kind of follows through there.
Well, it's all about the founder, I guess, isn't it? But it's not contrived with me at all. I've got an irrepressible enthusiasm for business. It just is kind of what makes me tick, I suppose. And I love opportunity and creating opportunity and positivity. It's just a really good feeling. And if you can share that with lots of people, that makes it even better.
What did it feel like when you finally went live and you started to see these investors piling on? You started to see people joining the campaign. You started to see that funding meter going up and up. What did that feel like for you as an entrepreneur, as a creator?
I don't honestly think I thought about it the first time. It was so new. And I'd already been rolling for quite a few weeks, like right on the edge of high activity, high task, which all these things always are. And our first raise, we went live on Crowdcube, 80% funded already, and we hit our target within 5 hours. So, and it just went on to be a really big story for the time. And I think this was in 2018. And the vegan movement was getting quite big then, but it was still kind of on the rise, it still hadn't anywhere reached its peak yet. But I think, with crowdfunding, I even did a crowdfund during the pandemic lockdown. You have to adapt to the circumstances with crowdfunding. There is no predicted way that it's going to go. You just have to sit yourself there and react to whatever comes your way. Everything from things that people ask you in the discussions to how long it takes to any good campaign. You will just see a sustained and prolonged kind of attack almost of just constantly working on it to get the investment that you need to get it across the line. And I think, don't take anything personally with crowdfunding. It's nothing personal at all, but just keep pushing. Perseverance and persistence are absolute key major traits in business generally, but none so true as in crowdfunding.
And for you, for someone who's looking at this and considering, wow, look, there's a whole new restaurant that's growing from location to location. What did those funds enable you to do? How did you put that to work to kind of grow the brand? And now you're obviously coming back to the crowd. Really, where are those funds being used for?
Yeah, I mean, our first crowdfund was for our flagship site in London, which opened in January 2019. And that's just gone from strength to strength, really. It's a really successful location for us now. And then we did a crowdfund in the middle of the pandemic last year, and that was for a move on our Cambridge site to a bigger site, actually. So coming out of the pandemic, we moved to a bigger site, and that also went extremely well. And the raise we're doing, well, we've just finished at the moment, is for our third site, which is also going to be in London.
That's insane. That's crazy. That's amazing. I mean, the fact that you're able to continue to go back, it says so much to me, just the loyalty that you have as well of your customer base, your investor base. They're clearly continuing to support you, right, throughout this vision.
They do. I mean, and we've got, repeat investors, people who put in every single time we raise. And I think as people, I guess the smart people, they view it as looking after their investment as well, because obviously any startup needs to raise money. In order to grow, the more money you can raise, obviously the faster you can grow. So I think it's kind of a strategic move on the part of we don't have any very large investors, by the way. They're all relatively small, but nevertheless, we have people who put in 20,000 every time we raise, or 10,000, 5,000. So yeah, it's kind of their way of just ongoing support, the investment that they made originally.
For you as a person who's done multiple companies, right, and you're growing this chain, do you feel like there are any kind of keys to your success thus far? I think for someone who's listening to this, also, like you mentioned, being a minority in terms of raising capital and being able to do it successfully, in terms of your business career, do you feel like there are any keys to success that you can share with the audience, things that have kind of helped position you to be successful or up until this point in time?
Well, I mean, I think, like, particularly with regard to crowdfunding, I think people think it's this kind of secret science, but it's not really. It's a method. And as long as you kind of get on board with the method, and the method starts with having an already pre-existing database. And if you don't already have an existing database, then you need to get one. And then it's about warming up your database. And then it's really just perseverance and persistence. Like I said earlier, there's a key traits to success. I think you just got to keep pushing on and just don't take anything personally. It's like and it's not a secret thing that some people have and others don't. It's not about that at all. I think it's open for all people, but you have to get in there and make that commitment and just keep driving it forward.
For you as a entrepreneur and someone who's doing that, has that been something that's been involved like with your entire life? Have you always been running your own companies and doing your own thing, or when did that really start for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, isn't it? And I think this is a key factor with somebody who's been in a job for 25 years, contemplating going it alone. I mean, that's a massive step, but I never did that because honestly, I had one or two jobs when I was in my late teens, and that was it. I'd then been self-employed for the rest of my entire working life. So I'm used to this environment. I'm used to a kind of self-made. I'm used to, being directly involved in making money to support myself and my family. So I think it is a much bigger step if you're coming from the comfort of a nice, secure, well-paid job to take that step alone, definitely.
Why do you think you're attracted to that kind of lifestyle? Like, why is it that you choose to run your own things versus, work for someone else, have a nice, cushy job, right? What really attracted you to that lifestyle?
Also a good question. I mean, honestly, the straight answer is I had 2 or 3 really terrible bosses in quite quick succession when I was in my late teens. And honestly, I just didn't want to be a part of that. I just thought there must be more to life than this. And so, yeah, it kind of snowballed from there, really. But I guess that's still, I think about that sometimes now, because obviously I aim to be a better boss, in inverted commas, than any of those people I ever worked for, because it was seriously kind of backwards, very sexist environments as well. So.
Yeah. So you kind of want to be able to set your own standards and lead the ship in that way and create an environment that other people, it sounds like, want to work at.
Yeah, I mean, that is a massive big part of the mission. I mean, obviously, we're all still learning. Can't say that you always get everything right. But I mean, like now, for example, we've just, as part of our recent funding round, actually, we've just launched an employee share option scheme. So, the people who are working for us, they now actually have a direct shareholding in our company as well. And I think that's the new way of business. I think you have to start looking at business like that. It's gone are the old ways now. When I was a teenager, you can't be like that anymore. It's not going to work.
At this stage in your career, do you still feel fear when you're going up and confronting a new obstacle like this or a challenge? Do you still get that fear?
You get asked the fear and the obstacle question quite often. Well, it's that thing, isn't it? Feel the fear and do it anyway. I mean, I think that's the only difference maybe between me and the next person is of course I do feel fear, but I just do it anyway because you can't let fear. I mean, I guess fear is probably a useful thing and it kind of flags something to you that's maybe slightly precarious or dangerous. But I mean, I'm a massively curious person. I don't really view, when you're in business, you do come up against things, and I'll refrain from calling them obstacles too much, but really these are just problems that are seeking solutions. So your job is really just to find the solution, and they come in many different forms. If you really believe in something, you just got to kind of take a deep breath. There's a friend of mine years ago taught me the concept of banjo. It's first thing in the morning, bang a nasty job off. No, but seriously, you have to do that thing that you just really don't want to do. And if you do that at the start of the day, the rest of the day is sweet.
Yeah, do something that is difficult that you got to tackle first.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. So in terms of the vision that you have for this company, you guys have been, like I said, expanding rapidly. You're in a massively growing industry. It's still a huge problem where a lot of people are not aware of even different, non-meat options. What do you feel like the vision is for your company, your brand? Are you trying to just go nationwide, wide beyond the UK, or what's your end goal here?
Well, I mean, I've always seen Stem and Glory as a kind of global brand, I suppose. So yes, we will open some more sites in the UK, but I've been approached to franchise into Amsterdam, actually. And we've also had some interest from Dubai. So, I mean, I just think the type of the brand that we are, I mean, we're not McDonald's, right? It's not going to work in every small town up and down the UK, but definitely it will work in strategic locations in the UK and strategic locations across the world. And we also have a fledgling supermarket project at the moment. So during the lockdowns, we launched a B2C ready meal concept. So we were shipping our meals all over the UK. And that went really well. And that's morphed now into a supermarket ready meal range, which we're hoping to launch this year. So I guess the two things combined spread into more locations in the UK and strategic destinations, and then supermarket range as well, sort of growing over the next 2 to 3 years.
Very exciting. Very exciting. When it comes to this new way of attracting capital, first of all, where can people go to learn a little bit more about your company?
Well, we've fortunately got a very distinctive name. So Stem and Glory, just type that into Google and we'll come up. We've just closed a round on Crowdcube, actually, but we are still fundraising, actually. And we are actually having conversations, believe it or not, with more institutional investment now. So I'm kind of hoping that that's the next thing that happens. Because, obviously restaurants, it costs money to open a restaurant, not going to lie. So obviously, you're limited in the spread, how far you can go in the amount of money you've got. So we're hoping to continue raising in the next sort of 3 to 6 weeks and be in a position where we can go a little bit more quickly. So we originally had one site planned for this year, but actually already at the end of this week, I'm going to look at another site for this year, which, potentially we could have another 2 sites this year, another 2 sites next year. So that's very much what I'm hoping for.
And by institutional investors, are you referring to like venture capitalists and those kinds of bigger funds? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Yeah. So that's very exciting, and something where if you're getting to that stage, I think it says a lot about the maturity of the business, right? That you're growing in that direction. So that's really cool. So just 1 or 2 more questions here on this. My first is, why do you believe that more restaurateurs, people in your industry, in the hospitality industry, aren't aware of this mechanism which they can use to either get financing or get funded or really push their business, further? Why do you feel like that isn't there, that people aren't aware of that?
I think people find crowdfunding a little bit scary, and honestly, that's probably rightly so. It is a little bit scary. Being live on Crowdcube or another crowdfunding platform it's intense. I'm not going to lie, but I think as well, people see this as a secret science, which honestly it's not. So if you're a restaurateur and you've got a large database, and by a large database, I mean like 10, 15,000 plus names, email addresses, you can use that to leverage your own email shots. You can use it to leverage Facebook and Instagram adverts, and you can use that to basically springboard a campaign. And as long as you kind of go through the right steps and put the right things in place, and don't assume that the platforms themselves will provide any of the people to fund your business. That's not actually how it works. And I think that's quite a fundamental thing for people to understand. So as long as you understand the impetus has to come from you, and you've got a reasonable sized database to start off with, and I do think more people should probably consider it as a funding option because it's under your control. You get out directly what you put in with crowdfunding, and I guess that's why I've always found it quite rewarding. You can go to tons of meetings trying to get money from people, and you're in their hands in that situation. But with crowdfunding, it's totally about what you put in is what you get out.
And my final question for you is, speaking to Louise, when you first had your 2 not so great bosses and you're just then about to enter the world of business and entrepreneurship and really kind of facing down that fear, what's something that you would say, and it could end with a final tip, a word of encouragement, something that you wish you knew when you were getting started, anything like that, and we can end on that note.
Oh, honestly, always follow your heart. Honestly, it's that thing they say, isn't it? It's a bit of a cliche, but it's very true. If you do what you love, you'll never do a day's work in your life. And I've been fortunate that it's been like that since I was very young. So yeah, just follow your heart. And also if you've got a really good idea and you're very passionate about it, don't listen to anybody else. Just go forward and do it. I kind of think that if it's your passion and you really feel strongly about it, you sort of owe it to the universe to go out there and do it, really.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. I'll be sure to link up your campaign in the show notes and also your website. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate all these great tips, and good luck with your next couple of raises here when it comes to institutional capital and beyond.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. If you've been listening to this episode on iTunes or Spotify, thank you so much. And also, can you take a second to just leave a positive rating and review? That would mean so much to me. And also, if you're listening to this, you can always subscribe on either of those platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also take a second to give me a thumbs up on that actual video. Leave a comment, show your support. Let us know that you're listening and that you're taking action, man. That is the name of the game. We gotta always be executing. We gotta always be surrounding ourselves with positive influences. We always gotta be surrounding ourselves with success stories, right? That will help us really just kind of kindle a little bit of that momentum that's required in order to be successful with crowdfunding. Because let's be honest, every single guest says the same thing. Right? We've had over 300 guests on the show, and they're all telling you guys, they are all saying the same thing, which is, yes, I felt fear. It was hard. It was a little bit confusing at times, right? I needed it just to understand a little bit more of how this works. Then I started to learn about it, and then I started to do this, and I started to do that. And before I knew it, I was taking action. I was getting momentum. And all of a sudden, I got tons of funding. Every guest has that same kind of hallmark story. And I try to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, because I think it's so important that eventually it's going to sink in, and you're going to realize that these people aren't special, man. They're not special. This is something that you can do with your business, with your project, with your career, whatever it is that you're trying to do. It's not rocket science. Like the guest said, there isn't a secret science to it. There is a method to the madness. There's a method you can follow that's duplicatable, that you can go A to Z through. And if you do it correctly, you can smash your goal when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign. Now, equity crowdfunding, things like Crowdcube, Seeders, WeFunder, Start Engine, Seed Invest, Republic.co, all of these are newer platforms for a lot of you out there in the audience. And if you have a business or you're starting a business and you're like, dude, this sounds so freaking cool. Like, I want to do a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, maybe, but I'm kind of leaning more to this equity thing. Listen up, because I'm going to share with you a link that you can book a one-on-one coaching call with me, and we can discuss if this makes sense for your business, or if it does, what do you got to do in order to be successful? And of course, I will also work one-on-one occasionally on projects if it makes sense, if there's a lot of opportunity there, if it's something that I believe I can help with. We can also talk about that, but mainly, this is an in-depth coaching call one-on-one with me that includes homework items, action items, the works, resources that I don't talk about publicly, people that I'd love to introduce you to the industry, all that kind of stuff we can talk about on a one-on-one coaching call. So if you're interested in booking one of those with me, all you got to do is go to this link I'm about to mention, and you can schedule that call ASAP. So just go to this link at crowdcrux.com/coaching. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. Schedule a one-on-one coaching call with me, and we will talk about, does this make sense? And we really get to the bottom of what do you need to do in order to be successful. Like nothing else, I've literally seen the explosion of this industry, and I'm the one who's documented, man. Not many other people are talking about this. I think it is so important to put these messages out there for creators, entrepreneurs, for people that are doing startups, for business owners. It is so important so that you know the resources that are at your disposal, and the fact that other people are being successful. Until you hear it from the horse's mouth, until you see it for your own eyes, you are not going to believe it, my friends. And that is exactly why we have the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, to help you through this entire process, as well as my blog, my courses, my books, me as a coach, me when it comes to helping with execution, all that kind of stuff. That's exactly why I started crowdcrux.com. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman, and I will see you next time.